Yeah, g'day everyone, and welcome back to the TryPod Live with Winnie and Clarkey. We are here for our round 23 NRL preview show where we're going to break down every single game for you, hand out some best bets, and break down all the action from a punting perspective. With me, as always, is the ever beautiful Jacob Wynn. Winnie, how are you, my friend?
Stop telling lies to the audience, mate. Sorry, we're slow off the mark again. Wouldn't you know it? It's always something with tech. I got a pop-up saying TryPod had violated Facebook rules with a clip I put. I think it was a funny little Olympics clip of a guy getting an absolute faceful in the wrestling. It might have affected our live stream here, and so we're not off to a good start. And I'm not off a good round 22. I didn't have the balls to back against some of these hot teams. There were big lines with Melbourne, Penrith, even the Bulldogs, but they're all hot and at home, and I didn't go against any of them, and that all those games were closer than expected, including one totally unexpected result. My Roosters game was closer than expected too, but I did win with the unders. Then you get Sharks winning comfortably, but I took them overs and they didn't score enough. And the Broncos just had a disastrous day out all round to condemn me to a 1-2 best bet weekend and a losing mixed matchup. On a positive note, I've enjoyed each and every day of the Olympics. Cheering our medal multi, which remains well and truly alive at $13 for those following. How about the Fox sisters on the whitewater? And in addition to that, if you're in the group, I'm 100% on any singles I share in the Olympics, which included getting Alfred at $6 odds in the women's 100-meter sprint on the weekend, which she dominated. And speaking of dominating, let me throw it back to Clarkey. That's what Clarkey's Collect has done since its inception. And I know the followers are keen to find out if you can hit a hat trick of multi-winners this week.
Mate, the Titans are looking for a hat trick. I'm looking for a hat trick. Everything that is great in this world is looking for a hat trick, mate. But more importantly is your best bets. We like to open the show with that as to give our listeners the best bit at the start, mate. So what have you got for us this week in the way of best bets?
Well, how about this? I've got 6 best bets on the first 6 games of the round, so I'll be pretty swift and we'll get into them more in detail as we go. I'm going to start with Storm. -7.5 in the second half at $1.83. Sportsbet, Ladbrokes and Neds is the way I want to play it because maybe Souths come out at home and fight the Storm from the beginning. But whatever happens, I think class prevails. If Storm are already up big at halftime, I think Souths let go of the rope. If it's tight, then I've got a very achievable line for Melbourne. I'm going to play the Sharks +3.5 first half at $1.88 against your very Titans. I just think that's a decent line between these teams. The Sharks are still playing for top 4, as hot as the Titans are, and I understand the Titans are at home. Cronulla got such a bad start last time they played the Titans where Gold Coast won a month ago. I think Cronulla remembers that. I reckon it's a beauty of a game, but I don't mind a 3.5 first half start. I'm going to take the Panthers later Friday night. Team total over 30.5 at $1.80 on 365. The Panthers play the Eels. Eels got up massively for a trip across the ditch to New Zealand last week. That's fine. It's very hard to do it again as a double-digit underdog. Penrith got a shock, was 14-all with under 10 minutes to go against Newcastle last week. I think Para plays a style where they push the offloads, which can generate points in both directions. Cleary's just on another planet right now. Doesn't miss a kick for you either. I don't think over 30 points is that great amount to attain for the Panthers. Move to Saturday. I'm going to lay the points -3.5, $1.87 on 365 with Manly in the nation's capital. Home field, I think, is negated or offset by Manly coming in off a bye. Several key players are back, or a couple that were contentious, copping knocks against the Roosters are all named. So I think I've got the slightly better team, fresher after Canberra went to war on Sunday night. I'm going to play North Queensland later Saturday, -6.5, $1.87 on 365 against the Broncos. It's a pretty simple one. Brisbane's season is dead. Mam is out. Haas is out for the season. Cowboys get back Cotter at home. I can't go too wrong. He's playing the team that needs it more. Cowboys in the 8, but also still fighting for top 4. And then I know you're going to love this one to cap Saturday night and my 6 best bets. I'm just going to play unders in Bulldogs, Dragons, under 48.5, $1.91 on 365. The beauty of playing on 365 also is that resulted at 80 minutes, so 24 all. You won. You don't have to worry about the field goal being kicked in extra time. I think this is going to be a very similar style game to Canterbury. Canberra, I think the Dragons are a similar team to Canberra. that was a very low-scoring game. You can't go too wrong with unders in Dogs games. They defend so well. But the Dragons find themselves in the 8 as well and back home, wanting to redeem from the last time St. George played a home game. I think both these teams are the type of sides that you don't mind playing unders because they want to be gritty. It won't always be pretty, but we don't need it to be when we're playing an under. So there's 6 best bets. Plenty for you to digest. Anything that sticks out to you there?
Nothing in particular that sticks out, but what I will say is when you first said 6 best bets, I thought, wow, that's a lot. But as you were going through each game, I was scrolling my notes. And this week, I'll be honest, this is probably the hardest week to prepare for me that I've had in terms of trying to find interesting points in each game. It just seems like one of those rounds where unless something funny happens, the results almost seem to write themselves, particularly as far as head-to-head is concerned. This seems a really easy week for the tipsters.
Don't say that. I'm sure a lot of people said that, including me last week. I said invariably there'll be an upset, but I can't tell you who it's going to be. And there were multiple last weekend.
Yeah, and just scrolling through my notes, I don't think I've got anyone for an upset this week. I'm pretty much seeing it how it's expected to play out. Let's jump into it game by game, mate. We kick it off on Thursday.
Fact, mate, I will actually get you to even give your breakdown of Rabbitohs Storm first, as I type up these 6 best bets for people.
Roger that, mate. So the Rabbitohs v Storm, guys, Thursday night at 7:50 p.m. We're at a core stadium. The line was set at -16.5 against Melbourne. That did not move after team lists. Melbourne welcome back Tui Kamakamitha, but Eliesa Katoa is out, so Nelson Asofa-Solomona moves to the back row for them. For the Rabbitohs, they welcome back Shakai Mitchell and Cody Walker, but they do lose Jacob Host and Saliva Havili. When I look at this game, I see one of the most simple games we've had to pick this year. I think it's almost impossible to go past the Storm here. And the only question I have for this game is how large of a winning margin are we going to see? Because this feels like one of those games where the Storm really could blow the Bunnies off the park. And I remember their encounter earlier this year was in Melbourne, and the Rabbitohs were at like +16 or something big. And I actually messaged Winnie before, and I said, surely they're not going to get smashed that bad. Like, they haven't won yet, but, that's a huge margin. And they got smashed by 30-something points. The difference between that Melbourne side and this Melbourne side is coming off a loss. This Melbourne side will respond to this loss, in my opinion. Now, the last time the Storm lost a game this year that they should have won, it was round 10. It was against the Sharks, and it was also at home. We saw them travel to Suncorp for Magic Round the following week, and they beat the Parramatta Eels by 32 points. Eels and Rabbitohs, they're kind of in a similar stature this year as far as their form is concerned. Again, they need to rebound in enemy territory, but I don't think a core stadium necessarily presents like a hostile away crowd environment. It's a very open, large stadium. It's not like playing at a Belmore or a Wollongong, etc. Other thing about when the Storm bounced back by 32 points against the Eels, that was a game where they lost Cameron Munster during. Assuming they remain full strength throughout this one, I think they can win here by a really solid margin. And I think even moving like someone like Nelson or Solomon to the edge does make them more dangerous because we know he has that offload, and that's what's really going to trouble South Sydney here. You look at the Storm and their last few performances leading up to that loss, they hadn't quite been playing 80 minutes. And I think that's going to be the key difference here. They are going to play the full 80 here. I think they are absolutely going to blow the Bunnies out of the water. Looking over the fence at South Sydney now, in particular their last 2 performances, I think that's what we can expect from them for the rest of this year. They had a little bit of air in their bubble when they went on that win streak, but it's all but gone at this stage now. They concede 27 points on average per game this season, and the Storm score 26. So I expect the Melbourne Storm to be up over that 30-plus margin. I don't see too many tries in the Rabbitohs, maybe 1 or 2 tries max for them. They've also not beaten a top 4 opponent this year, Winnie. The Rabbitohs are 0-5 against elite competition, and the Storm have won 9 of their past 11 against the Rabbitohs. I don't see it being competitive. I've got the Melbourne Storm by a very large margin, mate. How do you see this one playing out?
Sorry for scrambling there. Tristan's clip has come through to me, so I'll work on uploading that and we can feed it into the show later on because very keen to hear how the market's shaken up since the teams got listed. So first thing I will say, this is one of those games, I put the graphic on the screen, where you can get a 15.5 if you do like the Storm. So 16.5 toppy, but still some 15.5s available, including on Ladbrokes and Neds and Sportsbet. In fact, Sportsbet was a 14.5 where we are playing the second half line. And this line has moved, and you called it on Sunday that you just auto-play Melbourne next week after being upset. You know the response Bellamy gets. And the beauty of playing the second half's -7.5 is you essentially getting the same number that it was a few days ago, because a -6.5 or 7.5 second half is very similar, even though it has gone through the key number of 14. That's one of the reasons I've played it that way. There's no way I was going to go against Melbourne off a loss. So I totally agree with how you see it there. It occurs to me that while Souths have nothing left to play for, you don't really struggle for getting up for a home game against the top of the table, coming to visit. So I got to respect that Souths could put up a bit of a fight here. Murray has returned into this team. Look, I feel he's slightly wasted when he plays out wide, but he does come into the middle to spell Keon as well. And Walker is slated to recover from the calf injury. You got Eli Katoa out for Melbourne. I was kind of trying to talk myself out of Melbourne, but the more I thought about it is we're not going to be surprised at all if Melbourne puts the Rabbitohs to the sword here. Plus minus points differential is important as well in the minor premiership race. So if Melbourne gets up big, I think they still want to carry on with it, which is fine for a second half bet. And I do think the start is key in the sense that the Dragons held their nerve early under a lot of pressure in Melbourne. The Storm scored the opening try, but St. George didn't panic. In fact, St. George took a lead into the break. So that's the key for Souths. They've got to stay in the game in order to stay focused throughout. Because as I said at the top, I could see Souths falling away if the game gets out of reach. So if you like South Sydney, I wouldn't talk you out of +8.5 first half. I just think once Souths are down 10, if they don't cover the first half line, it's a long way back. So based on that logic, I'll play the Storm, expecting them to be clinical throughout, but especially with those playmakers, they'll hurt you, especially as there's more fatigue into the game. Souths may not be able to stick with them.
100%, and the Storm are due an 80-minute performance, so that could worry Rabbitohs bettors there as well. Next game is Friday, 6 p.m. It's the Titans v Sharks at Cbus Super Stadium. This line was -3.5 against Titans. It has since moved to -4.5. That is because news came in teamless that Braden Trindle is out. So Blake Brayley is the halfback, Cameron McInnes is the hooker, and Jack Williams is the lock. For the Titans, Bo Fermor is out, so Cleese Haas moves to back row, and Keenan Palacia joins their interchange. Now, these sides did meet recently. Winnie, did you want me to continue while you upload the clip?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, these sides both met recently, and since that meeting in Cops, they've actually both gone 2-1. Now, for this one, the Titans are the home side, and they are looking to make it 3 in a row, whereas the Sharks had 1 win and then the 2 losses there. I just look at this Titans side right now, and I think they're playing with an air of confidence that we just haven't really seen from them in a long time, if ever, under Des Hasler. And it really started in the second half of that Dolphins game where the mentality clicked that, we need to be competing for 80 minutes. And if we are, we give ourselves a chance. That was a great comeback against the Dolphins. The one against the Broncos was even better. So their belief and confidence seems to have come a long way. Whereas for the Sharkies, I would say their confidence is actually going the other way. They're in a position now where they're in the top 4. We're in the final home stretch, and we're talking about them needing to improve. So this is almost a very similar game to when they last met. When these sides met last time, you had a Sharks side that was on a slight decline and a Titans side that was on a slight incline coming into this game. At least that's how we kind of perceived it, right? And a lot of people favored the Sharks in that game, myself included. But the Titans shown us that they are slowly improving. Prior to that loss, the Sharks had won their last 9 in a row over the Titans. So if you do like Sharks, history favors you. But I go to the Titans' home record. They have 4 wins out of their last 5 at home recently. It seems that the club is really trying to build a bit of a fortress there. So I prefer the Titans in this one, all bias aside. I think they can win here and take advantage of the Sharks missing both their first choice playmakers in Hines and Trindle, mate. How do you see this one when you break it down?
So you say all bias aside, but it must be tough for you because you're probably feeling as good as you felt all year, the way the team's going right now. And it must just be tough for you to judge them without any bias because you always want to see the best in your team. But I got to give you credit once again, like the Storm game, you called another one that has moved significantly since Sunday night. I actually think we need to introduce an early line bet every recap show, not only to reward our recap followers, but there's so often where we talk about a game that we would have one eye on, and then the line already moves by Tuesday. I'm acknowledging more and more that to get the best of it, you've certainly got to be able to play lines throughout the week. And you said you were shocked that the Titans were a home underdog against Cronulla. And we also both explained why we wouldn't expect to see Trindle this week. So if you're saying now the line's moved 4.5 points because it's confirmed Trindle's out, like that's way too far. It shows that it was wrong on Sunday. Hamlin Uele is also out. I know he's replaced by Hazelton, but a halves combo with Atkinson and now Brayley at 7, McInnes at 9. Little bit of disruption for Cronulla. However, Fermor is a big loss for the Titans. You got back Jamin Jolliffe at least, and the mercurial AJ Brimson remains in the reserves. He would worry me a little bit, though. I know Brimson would be off the bench, so not someone I have to deal with for the whole first half. I'm wary of going against a Titans side that you are emblematic of the fact that this team is as confident and hot as they've been all year, just like Clarkey's Collect itself. And again, I go back to the people. They can look at themselves, although I'm sure they never will. But the people that gave me so much grief for taking the Titans to beat the West Tigers. What was I thinking 5 weeks ago when I suggested the Titans should beat West, right? And I'm crazy, right? But since then, the Titans have gone and beaten everybody, and that's included Cronulla at Coffs in that span, which is actually a key component for my handicap taking Cronulla here. I really do think it's tough to beat any side twice, especially a side that is stronger than you. And maybe that's a discussion, who's the better team here. To me, I still respect what Cronulla has, and we can't forget about the Sharkies. They're sitting in the top 4 right now. I know they've had very middling form the last 6 weeks, but there's still everything to play for with the quality that is just beneath Cronulla on the ladder. They absolutely will back themselves to come in and do a job here, but the key will be not to have a shocking start like they did that night in Coffs. And yes, it was a night game where the Titans got the better of Cronulla and deserved it. But you made that point on Sunday, which I agree, that night footy probably suits the Sharkies more than the Titans. It's just something about that speed and beautiful daytime conditions giving you more opportunities to shift it where the Titans can utilize their strengths. Look, I actually agree the Titans should be a favourite here, but I'm sitting in between the line being 4.5, 5.5, and Titans not being a favourite. I think it's a little heavy. I'll take that extra key number in the first half, despite the fact your top 8 dreams are still possible, and I know you'll come out guns blazing. You can have it both ways. We can cover plus 2.5 with Cronulla first half, and Titans could still very well win this game. And like I look at the matchups, I think the forward pack matches up reasonably well with Gold Coast. Outside backs every bit as good as well. If I think it's going to be a great game, I don't mind getting 2.5 points in the first half.
And what I will say for people that prefer the Sharks in this one, it could be said that last round for the Titans was our grand final because it was a sold-out atmosphere where they smashed the Broncos via record margin. And just knowing the Titans like I do, there is a chance that complacency slips into our game. And that's why, although I did say on the recap show, Titans will probably be my Clarkey's Collect this week, they're actually not, just because there is that chance of complacency after such a huge victory and what a lot of their players might perceive as their grand final last round against the Bronx. Alrighty, after that, it's Eels v
Let me bring
Panthers.
in some comments, mate. Harry Potter says he got on Titans $1.95 head-to-head on Sunday cheering, and I know he commented that straight after you said that looked very appealing. Ryan says, nice. Playing them early was the way to go for sure if you like Titans, but I had a feeling the line would move and I'll end up liking Sharks. Ryan also says the Sharks were so bad in the Rabbits game, they'll play as if they're off a loss in a sense, which I think is something to be said for a team winning ugly, winning well below their best, that they will still strive for that improvement. And you're not going to overlook a team that beat you just 4 or 5 weeks ago. Sucker Lamink says definitely wants some look-ahead lines. Luke really liked Titans this week. Hasler's sprays are getting through, but Whitaker says playing the Sharks first half avoids the halftime spray.
It does fit the best bet mold there, definitely, with Ryan's theory there. Next up, mate, is Eels v Panthers, Friday, 8 p.m. at Combank Stadium, rather. The line was minus 16.5 against Penrith. No change after team lists. No change to the Eels side. One change for the Panthers. Dane Laurie comes back in. And when you look at this one on paper, Winnie, it's another pretty easy one to tip. The Eels did get a win last round, but this looms as a very difficult effort to back it up again, mate. How do you see this one when you break it down?
So I do have a best bet, which is Panthers over 30.5 team total, $1.80 on 365. I've got Tristan's clip, so please make a note. We might throw to that after we complete the Friday night preview. I'm not the first one to make this point, but I've seen it discussed that if you lose to Penrith in a grand final, you're ruined as a club. And we look at the Rabbitohs, the Eels, and the Broncos, and what scenario they're all in after getting all the way to the grand final and meeting Penrith. Those clubs are all pretty busted. Paras had an absolutely horrendous season. Last year wasn't much better either. Though the Eels got a surprise win in New Zealand, I think that takes away a bit of wooden spoon pressure. But I know that Para can't play that well every week. I also remember Parramatta upsetting the Premiers late last year, and I'm sure that Penrith remembers that one too. No major changes. Yes, Laurie back for Yongi. I see that somewhat like for like. Laurie, the more experienced player. And I only want to play Penrith in this. They can also treat last week like a loss because they let Newcastle come way too close. As I said before, it's 14 all with under 10 to go. Para pulls off the double-digit underdog win. Very, very rare will you see a team do that 2 weeks in a row. I don't really see any scenario where the Eels could win this game. Not only does Penrith now want to grab the minor premiership with the inside track by virtue of the Storm loss, as I explained in the recap, yes, Melbourne's 2 points ahead, but those sides meet in Penrith, which essentially means the road to the minor prem goes through Penrith. I've talked as well about Penrith just wanting to establish that dominating form that we all know they're capable of now that the band is more or less back together, though not completely. I'm playing Penrith here, but let's not forget the Fish and Edwards are still out. Like, they're awesome players that most teams would really miss. But Penrith's one of those sides that you do forget who's not there sometimes. But I also like the over in this match because I know Parramatta can't outgrind Penrith and then won't even try. So they'll play that higher risk brand of footy, but that can generate points and opportunities in both directions. I got a nearly automatic kicker in Cleary, so they could score the Panthers 5 tries and add a penalty, as they often do, and get 32. Or if it takes more than 5 tries, I'm not too worried. When I got Luai, I got the GOAT there. That's my halves, and so many weapons outside these two. And I wonder if punters, let me know in the comments, is anyone gun shy after a lot of the favourites failed last weekend, and particularly the Storm and Panthers were big, had big handicaps and didn't get close to covering them? Are people wary or cautious to take them again? I'm not, and I'm hoping that I get a little bit of a discount because I'm willing to jump on these super popular public sides. Because, of course, I am playing Storm in a way. I'm playing Storm second half, and I am playing a bet that's adjacent to the Panthers line in a full-time total. And I do lean to the big guns, flexing their muscles and reminding the competition the level that they're capable of this weekend.
That's exactly right. Last year when you look at the two elite sides, it was the Broncos and Panthers. They rarely ever put bad back-to-back performances together. This year you'd say it's the Storm and the Panthers, and they both have relatively easy opposition. A super easy one for me to tip, much like the Storm game and Rabbits. I think this just comes down to how much the Panthers want to win by. I know that it was Luke. He points out that Eels have a good record. Zach from YouTube points out that the Eels won't roll over because it's a rivalry game. I actually think that all goes out the window. The Panthers are just a different level to the Eels this year. Let me rephrase, actually. They are levels ahead of the Eels, absolutely levels ahead, to the point where I would genuinely tip Panthers New South Wales Cup side to beat the Eels in a tight one, but I still think that they'd win even with their reserve grade there. I also don't think there's a chance that the Penrith Panthers take them lightly here or come in with any sort of complacency for 2 reasons. Number one is what you mentioned. They didn't lose last round, but they also learned a lesson similar to what the Storm did of complacency against the Knights. So there's that factor. Number two, the Eels are a side that have had success over them in recent years, particularly or only in the regular season, really. And they are rivalries. So I think they will absolutely enjoy putting the Eels to the sword here and really reminding them that we are the team of the West. It's not the Eels. You go to the Eels. Yes, they had a win last round against the Warriors, but they have not won back-to-back this year, and they've lost 4 of their last 5 games at home. So it's not like it's a fortress that the Panthers are going to struggle coming to. I don't want to waste anyone's time breaking this one down any further, so I'll leave it with this stat. The Eels are conceding 28 points on average per game this year, and the Panthers almost half of that with 15. My final prediction here is Panthers by 20 or however many they choose. I really think that just like the Storm, they will dictate terms. They will dictate whether they win by a double-digit margin that's 10 or it could even be up to 30, and I would not be shocked at all. Alrighty, Winnie, you mentioned the Tristan clip now. Seems as good as time to ever offer that. So let's go to Tristan Merlehan, the CEO of TopSport, for some exclusive market insights.
G'day everyone, it's Tristan here from TopSport. It's been a big week. Obviously the Olympics in full swing. We've had a massive round of upsets in the NRL as well after it looked like there was a few lopsided games on the agenda. So we move into this weekend. It'll be interesting to see if the cream rises to the top or a few of those teams that pulled off some upsets are able to do something similar. So looking at the round ahead, there's been a few moves for those favoured teams. The Storm have gone from 14.5 out to 16.5 in the Bunnies game. The Titans have probably been one of the biggest moves. Obviously no Trindle. And although both Firma's out for the Titans as well, but that line's moved from 1.5 out to 4.5. So a strong push towards the Titans where they hope to keep their season alive for another week. Then in a couple of the other games, the Seagulls have been well backed against the Raiders, 2.5 out to 3.5 and short of the minus. And then the Broncos, they haven't had much go right this season, and there's been a lot of money for the Cowboys. So that line's gone from a flat 6 to 7.5 and shorter the Cowboys. So plenty of good games on the offering. Looking forward to seeing how the weekend shakes out and see who's still in the running for the 8 and the 4 after these games. Good luck if you're having a punt over the weekend. And of course, gamble responsibly and enjoy the Olympics.
Thank you very much to Tristan there. Our TopSport also a sponsor of the Tweed Seagulls, who are the Titans feeder club, and they upset the second place North Devils in Q Cup. So great weekend there for TopSport, no doubt. We'll move into the next game, Winnie, and I will reveal at the end of this game, I will draw back the curtain and reveal Clarkey's collect for this week because it does include this game. It's the Raiders v Seagulls, Saturday 3 p.m. at GIO Stadium in Canberra. The line was minus 3.5 against Manly, and there's been no change to that. For Manly, they welcome back Ethan Strange. That moves Adam Cook to the bench and Danny Levi drops out. Hosking is out and Ata Mariota joins the bench. For the Seagulls, some huge inclusions here. Hopewadi returns. That moves Tommy Talau to centre. Lachlan Croker and Hamoli Olakawatu are both back in for them. Fantastic game here. I think this is a game, Winnie, where for the Seagulls, there's top 4 implications. For the Raiders, there's top 8 implications. So in a way, I'm sure both teams are viewing this as a must-win game. Over to you, mate. Who do you think wins this one and why is it the Seagulls?
Yes, Manly by more than 3.5 points. Manly by a try or more, I am predicting, and that is my best bet, and it was $1.87 on 365. I do regret not being on the Raiders last week. I do quite like Canberra, but then again, when Strange was withdrawn, I lost a bit of confidence in Canberra, though they still manufactured enough points to contend with Canterbury and gave a good effort. But it's a tough one to back up now 6 days later, though you get Strange back, and the Raiders at home are going to be a handful. However, Manly got the bye at a really nice time, you have to say, and you touched on it there with the big inclusions, Olakawatu, Croker, Garrick and Saab both got head knocks versus the Roosters, but both got that time to recover as well. Wadi, as you said. And I don't know if Manly can make the 4, but it's also important that Manly cements their spot in the top 8. If the Raiders win this game, they will be within 1 point of the Seagulls. So it looks a beauty of a game. I think Manly will be the side that will relish the afternoon. Someone commented before, Manly will be happy to not play Canberra this time of year at night. I also think Manly, with the reinforcements, their forward pack won't get bullied, which is what Canberra's going to try to do to you. The kicking duel is going to be very key. Strength of Fogarty's game, but we all know what DCE is capable of. So I look at up and down the teams, and it's a very simple difference between these sides. That Canberra doesn't have a Tom Turbo that probably can account for one extra try. As simple as that sounds, I think Manly should be favourites by at least this, or probably closer to a converted try. And that key point to me is I get Seagulls scheming off a bye versus a Canberra side that had a battle in Belmore on Sunday night.
And so I did my notes for this game on Monday before team lists had come out, and I was actually favouring the Raiders at that stage. Well, rather, I was favouring either side 1-12 because I didn't see as many points in Manly as we now see. That's because Croker I didn't know he was coming back. I forgot about Ola Kawatu. I didn't know Lehigh Hopewadi was ready to come back. And of course, the Tom Trbojevic factor is huge as well. Also a good spot for Manly at the moment. Both their starting front rowers, Josh Aloiai and Taniela Paseka, have re-signed with the club long-term. So I expect them to come out there and have a great game against Raiders. Now, I went back and I had a look. In round 9, the Raiders won a game between these two, 26 points to 24. And then I looked at sort of similar opposition to Manly on the ladder. From that point, they have gone 3-3. And that's why I was looking down that 1-12 route. But then I did a little bit further digging, and pretty much all of those games where they went 3-3, they were missing a big gun, be it Tom, be it their Origin captains, be it whoever. They were missing players consistently. Now they're coming off a bye with the strongest team they've been able to name in like 10 rounds, let's say. Their Origin captains have had a week off and a well-deserved rest. And as you mentioned, they've just got points coming out everywhere. Whether it's Turbo sweeping on the left edge with Hopewadi, who's electric, Ola Kawatu creating a decoy on the right-hand side for Ruben Garrick and Jason Saab. There's just too many points in this Manly side for me. And I really think that they can beat the Raiders here, particularly in daytime conditions in Canberra. I think that's also another key point here. So my Clarkey's Collect this week, you've probably gathered it includes 3 games, not the Titans one, as that was the only one I wasn't too confident on. I'm going Storm minus 9.5 and the same for the Panthers. So I want the Storm and the Panthers to win by 10 points. I'm comfortable that both of those sides are much better. And whilst they didn't cover the line last week, I actually think that plays into their psyche a little bit and helps us in terms of getting an 80-minute performance from them this week. My final leg, Winnie, Manly plus 6.5. Now, that is a cautious approach because I do see Manly winning here. But if they do lose, I couldn't see how to be more than a converted try. The Raiders just don't have the same amount of points in them. So you combine those 3 legs and we get $2.60 on toppy. $2.60. I mean, I think that's fair for 3 legs that I'm pretty confident on winning. I can see all 3 playing out, and they're all fit in perfectly with how I'm predicting these games, mate. What are your thoughts on Clarkey's Collect for round 23?
Yeah, I like it. You can type it up in the comments when you throw to me next game, or you can even start typing it up now next game. I was thinking ahead. We do have a clip from Nicole for the Queensland derby, but I just love the fact that your Clarkey's Collect, the 3 sides you've picked tie into 3 sides I'm also backing in a different angle for best bets.
Yeah, I don't want to jinx things, but we actually have had really good success lately where we've both seen games similarly. You've been getting the best bets. I've been getting the Clarkey's Collect. The Dolphins one, where I thought the full-time line, you thought halftime. It's been good, needless to say, when we both sort of viewed games the same recently. So I am excited for Clarkey's Collect. Also excited for this game. It's the Cowboys v Broncos. It's Saturday, 5:30 p.m. at Queensland Country Bank Stadium in Townsville. And the line is set at minus 7.5 against the Cowboys. There's no changes after team list. The Cowboys, they welcome back Ruben Cotter. For the Broncos, they're without Payne Haas and Ezra Mam. So Josh Rogers and Tristan Saylor come in. Corey Oates is also out, and Karapani takes the wing there. And this is a rivalry game, Winnie, but it's under different circumstances. Like, I remember when you saw Cowboys and Broncos on the bill, it was a blockbuster game. JT, Darius Boyd, prime Anthony Milford. But look, the Broncos season ended last round via one of their rivals in the Titans, essentially. Now they've got to back it up with another tough rivalry game, this time going to Townsville, so traveling even further. And you just think the Cowboys will have a little bit too much for them in this one.
I do. Now, Brisbane, I lost to them last week. I'll say it again. The Broncos were not as bad of a pick last week as the result would lead you to believe. Let's take the best prop in the world out of any team in the warm-up. Then let's lose your gun 6 in the first half. Let's have a lead that just starts dwindling, and then you're behind a little. You get some near misses when the game's in the balance, and then a back-breaking try or two, and no doubt the dam walls burst. So the Titans ran in those late tries and made it look even more embarrassing. And at that point, the game was over, as was Brisbane's season. Usually, you wouldn't question whether Brisbane can get up for the traditional rivalry against the Cowboys, but you have to question it this week when your season was done and dusted, as you said, at Seabus. As opposed to North Queensland, they played Thursday night, took care of business in a game where they can still pick the negatives that need improvement. You shouldn't be giving up 30 points to the West Tigers, especially how many of those, at least 16 or so of those, were against 12 men. So the Cowboys can strive for improvement. They might not need much improvement to deal with this Brisbane team. I think the Cows catch Brisbane at the perfect time. I hate playing a line that has moved a long way. You could have got about Pick'em in the look ahead, but it makes sense the reasons it's moved. And I talk about the stars that are out for Brisbane, the spot, the Cowboys get back Cotter, top four still attainable. And if you're going to back Brisbane, or if this bet loses, then no doubt the best players for the Broncos, Carrigan, Walsh, Reynolds, Staggs, will step up and lead the way. But those players are starting to look a bit bruised, a bit busted, and it makes sense. I mean, the age factor for Reynolds and just what Carrigan and Walsh had to go through with an Origin campaign. Of course, the Cowboys had plenty involved in Origin too, but had the luxury to rest 1 week and look much more like a side that's on the ascension, as opposed to Brisbane is essentially in free fall. I don't have to think about this game too much more. I'll just play it before the line gets any larger.
And I think this is a line that will continue to move towards the Cowboys, just by nature of when you look at this Broncos side and you want to look for reasons they'd be up for an upset. What are you looking for? Because those same reasons you would have been saying for the last 6 weeks, right? Where it's do or die, it needs to happen now. This player's back, that player's back, whatever it might be. And really, outside of a game against the Knights, who were off in Newcastle and haven't looked that flash until last round, there's just been nothing the Broncos have shown us. They have been poor for such a sustained period now that it's just hard to have any faith or belief that suddenly it is going to switch. Even in terms of what they were saying last week to the media, we've had honesty sessions. We know what we've got in this shed. We're going to come out and play for each other. To then concede 36-0 in the second half there, it shows that the words were empty, that's for sure there. Now the Cowboys, they are a side that has struggled for consistency as well this year. And they were also not at their best last round against the Tigers, but they have won their last 3 in a row. They've gone 2 out of 3 in their last 3 home games. That one loss was a golden point loss to the Seagulls, so nothing to be ashamed of there. And I also think that the Cowboys are kind of poised in a delicate ladder position where they could still make the top 4. They could still miss the 8 altogether. But I think where their mindsets will be is making sure they can secure that home final, if not top 4. And of course, that means finishing 5th or 6th. And that is just something that is so important for the Cowboys, because we know this is a different side in Townsville to what we see in Sydney, by and large, of course. I think they're going to come in focused here. They know the Broncos are their rivals. I expect them to play a little bit more conservative because it is their rivals. And I actually think that helps the Cowboys here, because then they can build sustained pressure. And if they are able to build sustained pressure without those silly errors that they sometimes have in their game, we have a Broncos side who conceded 36 points in the second half last round. And we also have a Broncos side that's conceded over 30 points on 7 occasions this year. So there is certainly an opportunity for someone like Scott Drinkwater to have a huge game and to continue to climb up the Dally M leaderboard. So my tip is the same as yours, mate. It is Cowboys at the line. I think they'll just be too good for the Broncos.
And let's hear what Nicole's tip is, because he's got one for this game.
Hey everyone, it's Nicole from Wiki. Hope you guys are enjoying the footy with only 5 regular season rounds to go. Look, I'm going to cut to the chase with this one. Xavier Willison on 365. I hope this price is around by the time this goes live, but he's 17s to score a try anytime and 101 to score the first or the last try, separate single plays on 365. All of those, I want to say ballpark double, almost double what they should be. Like absolutely incredible price. Even if 365 has brought it down to anywhere around 67s, anywhere around 10s for any time try scorer, get on. Incredible price. Google Wiki Linktree, as always, guys. Our Discord's across 5,000. Odds comparison tool, punters preview, left v right article, all of that stuff is all for free. Good luck, punt responsibly, enjoy the weekend. Catch you guys soon.
Thank you very much to Nicole there, the king of look-aheads and finding good value there. I assume they priced that thinking Wilson would be coming off the bench now starting, so that's a good spot there. Next game, mate. This should be a ripper, actually. It's the Dragons v Bulldogs, Saturday, 7:35 p.m. We're at Nostrada Jubilee. The line is set at -3.5 against the Bulldogs, and it did not shift after team lists. That's because there were no changes to either side. And what we have here, Winnie, is two sides that are the most improved this year. I think that would be statistically correct as well. But if not, certainly they're worlds ahead from where they were last year. And it has finals implications for both teams as well. Two coaches that are competing for potentially Dally M Coach of the Year, and also a lot of former Bulldogs in that Dragons lineup as well. So I actually think this would be a great fiery encounter, mate. How do you see it when you break it down?
You know that meme with Paul Rudd? It's like, hey, look at us. Look at us. Who would have thought? That's the Dogs and Dragons right now in round 23, and it's 5th versus 8th. And they're both off really gutsy wins. In fact, that Dragons win, it's not just their win of the season. It's their best win in several years. And it's great to see that neither side suffered any personnel losses, so they're both coming in very strong to this one. It sets up a great game for Saturday night. Dare I say, it could be a final-style atmosphere, which, again, is one of the reasons why my best bet, to remind you, is going to be under 48.5 at $1.91 on 365, with the added bonus that 365 results at 80. So you definitely play it there. But 48.5 anywhere, I think, is the right side to be on. A couple of weeks ago, I said that the Dragons are a similar side to Canberra. So it's not surprising that I see this game going similarly to the Dogs' last match, which was against the Raiders. I don't think it'll be pretty. Both come in with total belief they can win. There's some exciting outside backs there. Sloan made a super return to the Dragons. Lomax having a whale of a year, possibly second-guessing that move to Para next season. But then you got a man who did make a big move. Crichton went and left the best team on the planet, the team that is favoured to win 4 comps in a row. What a silly decision that was, right? No, he's perfectly happy where he's landed, and he is dead set, almost untouchable critter right now. I think the Dogs' class can be the difference if you want to know which way I'll see it. I mean, what are we, 3.5 line? I think the line should be 2 or 3. If anything, I could actually lean to the Dragons, but I'm saying I agree the Dogs should be favourite. What I don't agree with is the total being this high. Can't go wrong betting unders in Dogs games, and we've talked about that just about all season long. But the Dragons at night at home, I think, is a perfect opponent to match that style and get us a tight, hotly contested and defensive matchup.
Here's the things, Dragons fans. I don't want to upset anyone here, but I do need to remind everyone that, yes, they were fantastic in Melbourne last round, but the week before that, they were soundly destroyed by the Panthers 30+, and that's only 1 week prior. Now, I'm not calling that out as an outlier. That's actually the trend that is right throughout their season. It has been an inconsistent run of results, and we have sat here every single week on the recap show, Winnie, where I say, great by the Dragons, let's see them back it up now, right? Prior to that, they edged past the Broncos, but the week before that, they lost by 30 to the Roosters. Then they had the big win over the Dolphins, but that's just before they had a big loss to Manly. And they've actually only gone back-to-back, Winnie, 2 times this year. Both of those times included the Tigers. No disrespect, Tigers, but if you did want to go back-to-back, you probably want to see Tigers as one of those teams there. So there's really no evidence for me to believe that the consistency finally has clicked for the Dragons. And if we're looking at the trend of their season, it's actually more chance that they don't show up here, just based on the fact they do go 1 good performance, 1 bad performance. Now, I hope that's not the case. And if I have to say certainly right now, given it's sold out and it already sold out and it's only Tuesday and it's going to be a huge atmosphere there, I think they're going to turn up here. I don't think they're going to be that inconsistent. But the Bulldogs, we have to respect the consistency they've shown us for such a sustained period now where they haven't always won, but they've fought and been in every single game. I think if the Dragons get off to the fast start here, they will be the side that wins. But I do prefer the Bulldogs' effort over 80 minutes to be the difference here. When you try to break it down statistically, Dragons have won 5 of its 7 home games this year, so they've been pretty good. And the Bulldogs are actually yet to win an away game this year. So for that, all things considered, they're winning. I do expect a close one, so I'm not sure what it would pay, but I would go either side 1-12 for my tip here. I reckon it's going to be a fierce battle, both sides unrelenting, low scoring, great defense, and a top game of footy to watch for the fans.
I like that a fair bit too. You made me do a double take there. So I knew that the Dogs are. I was trying to look for a additional ladder or a ladder with additional breakdowns. So is that right? The Dogs are 8-0 at home this year. No, but the Dogs are 11-8. So I'm just questioning how can they be winless away? They must have won 1 or 2 games away.
So their ladder here has them 2 from 8 away, but I swore there was a stat recently
2
they
and 8.
hadn't won.
Yeah.
So that would have been
So
the Suncorp win against the Broncos. Sorry.
Yes.
And
perhaps Magic.
And Newcastle. Newcastle and Broncos. So I am wrong there. So I tried to regurgitate a stat.
Yes, no doubt. There's a big dichotomy between Dogs at home, Dogs away. But it's one of those things where they're very aware of this too, and they'll want to, right that. And they came very close, Canterbury, to winning in North Queensland and then destroyed Brisbane. So I don't think it's a mental hang-up they can't get past. But it's well worth noting, like this team's 100% when they play at home, and 20% when they play away from home at this point.
Oh, and I'll go one step further. When they've actually lost at a core this year as the away team to the Rabbitohs. So, there's just something about the psyche there. Sorry, guys, not quite 0-10, 2-8 for the Doggies away. Worth noting, no away wins in Sydney, which you'd think it'd be easier than Newcastle and Brisbane. But for whatever reason, the Doggies aren't playing as well away as they are at home. Either side 1-12, my final prediction there. Moving on to the Sunday game, mate, we have the Dolphins v Warriors at Suncorp Stadium at 2 p.m. The line was set at -8.5 against the Dolphins, and that has not moved following team list. The Dolphins will welcome back Tavita Pengai Jr. and Cody Nikorima, which I think they're both huge inclusions for what it's worth. The Warriors, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck moves to centre. Edward Cossey is the winger here. We got the Dolphins here winning. I thought they were in 5th for some reason on the recap show. They're in 9th. They're on a 3-game losing skid. And this looms as must-win as anything that they could ever, imagine with the context of their season. But I think we might have a desperate Warriors side as well, following the retirement of Sean Johnson, mate. So you don't have a best bet for this one, but I am interested to know, how do you break it all down?
And that's why I think this game could be, there's barely a result that would surprise me here. And so it's the first game of the round where, as you said, I don't have a best bet. You'd say New Zealand had done that. That had to win that game at home against Para in front of a yet again packed out Mount Smart. They're so far off the pace, as I said in the recap. At one point, Parramatta leads it 30-6. Just crazy. But does the Johnson news give this team something else to play for in this handful of remaining games, along with, as Webster said, the mathematical possibility of still being alive? New Zealand has to win 4 games. It's very unlikely to happen. But mathematically, they're not dead. It's just when you need to win 4 games, surely you got to win the one where you're $1.20 favourite at home, which the Warriors failed to do. But the thing as well is that this game is not impossible to win. I look at these sides up and down, and New Zealand has the ability to make this interesting if they come in and apply themselves. And the absence of pressure on New Zealand now that everyone else has written them off may not be the worst thing. And New Zealand is that type of side that's unpredictable in terms of the games you think they should really get up. And a couple of home games I've really circled. I've been like, if I back the Warriors here, I know they'll be dialed in for this one. And I know that the pressure that will be on the ref and that it will be a tough environment for the away team. And there's been a couple of home no-shows for the Warriors. And then when you think, they're down a couple of troops, they're outmatched here, they're away from home, has been when they've had some of their best wins and best performances. So it could go either way, because I'm not going to be shocked either if the Finns, just by virtue of needing the game more, being back in Brisbane, take care of it, get TPJ back and win well. It is absolutely a must-win for the Finns. And I understand why the line had to move significantly from the look ahead. But where it is right now, I think it's understandable, but not screaming out to me on either side. And a high variance game, so even if I was to beat the line by a point or two, it's just it could count for very little. So I expect that the Dolphins win. If you press me for a tip, and that's not too bold to say with a 9-point favorite, but you could go the extremes here. You could go Dolphins 30 plus. You could go Warriors outright win as well for juicier odds in this. Definitely a game I wouldn't buy 12 extra points and play something at $1.20, because if your team is not on, then no number of points will be enough in this game.
Yeah, this is an interesting game. My first note here says, I think this is a mentally really hard one for the Warriors to get up for. And of course, I made these notes before Shaun Johnson announced his retirement. So that does fundamentally shift how I was seeing this game. And I've also got a post coming out in 7 minutes, Winnie, that says it was from last round saying Shaun Johnson's career is likely over. So it would be fun to see the comments on that one. Thanks, Shaun Johnson. I think in all likelihood, the Warriors players probably don't believe Andrew Webster's comments last week in the press conference that their season is alive. You just look at that ladder and there's just no way they can play finals from this point. But the Shaun Johnson retirement factor is a nice short-term boost. And we know that the Warriors have a big fan base in Queensland as well. Given a lot of those Southeast Queensland fans know this is their last chance to see Shaun Johnson in Queensland, I actually think this will be a big crowd, and there'll be a big atmosphere for the Warriors. In my opinion, the Warriors could outnumber the Dolphins in terms of attendance at this game. You go to the Warriors and the Dolphins season averages, they're not too far apart. And I think only one win separates these sides or something like that. They are close on points there. I can see this as one of these games where Wayne Bennett does have the troops firing. Really laying down the challenge of season on the line, guys. I want to see you respond. And we know when Wayne Bennett lays down the challenge, typically his side does respond. I think they should have too many points in them for the Warriors, but they have conceded 21 points or more in their last 9 games. So that's at least 3 or 4 tries there for the Warriors. I think Bennett will get them to focus defensively, but I tell you what, mate, I had Dolphins 13 plus here. Now Shaun Johnson's announced his retirement and there'll be a much bigger Warrior fan base at this game. I don't know anymore. I don't know what to expect. I think if I had to give a tip, I wouldn't play Dolphins at a minus. I'd only be interested in a plus for the Warriors, but I don't know what number I'd feel safe with. So I'm going to stay off this one, guys. I actually don't have a tip for it. Very tough game.
I totally agree about the crowd. I've been to Broncos-Warriors games at Brisbane. They always get out in force. And the last chance to see SJ, and you know it as well, being a Titans fan and seeing how they get out at the Gold Coast. And I just looked up the Warriors draw, and here's what I mean. The Warriors need to win 4 games. Well, they're at the Dolphins, at the Seagulls, host the Bulldogs, at the Sharks. So they're going to be like around a $3 to $3.50 underdog in all of those games. None of those are impossible. We see $3 underdogs win every weekend. So the Warriors aren't saying we have no chance. It's just that to win as $3-ish 4 straight times is 100 to 1. So realistically, they're no chance. But in their minds, you're saying there's still a chance. It's that type of thing. So we'll see. But you add the Johnson news and information that he shared with his teammates into the mix, and I'm happy to stay away from it. And I think they're another team, New Zealand, that could play a more entertaining brand, actually, once they've been written off.
Yeah, and there's also a lot of talk around Shaun Johnson's form as well. So he'll want to respond and have a big game, which we know he's capable of. I'll enjoy this game to be an awesome one, but just not going to have a bet on it. Final game of the round, mate. Knights v Tigers, Sunday at 4 p.m. at McDonald Jones Stadium in Newcastle. The line is set at minus 10.5 against the Knights, who will welcome back Brodie Jones. For the Tigers, Adam Dwayhe and Aiden Caesar return. Latu Fainu and Justin Olam are out, and Fanua Pole returns on their bench. And hate to say it, this will be a fun game, Winnie, but it is a bit of a snoozer to close the round. Who have you got winning this one and why?
So since I'm not back in the Tigers, then I do have the Knights winning it for sure. Dewey covers your Olam loss. I suppose Caesar back from suspension. Jacob Saifidi still remains out for the Knights. You had a good effort in Penrith for sure by the Knights. Talk about a step down in class, playing Penrith one week, West the next. The Knights are another side still mathematically in the finals race. They're on equal points as the Titans. So they've got to win to keep their season alive and kicking, just like you do. West's season is a total write-off. I suppose they're still fighting to not get a third straight spoon. The Tigers were not a million miles away from the Cowboys. The send-off very much condemned them there. And West, what can you say about the Tigers? They're a team nobody expects to win each and every week, and nobody will be picking West to win this one. Then that can make you a little bit dangerous because there is still a couple of exciting players at Benji's disposal that I think can trouble the Knights. And the Knights are not full strength. They're not the same team without Bradman Best. I mean, and you brought this point up in the recap as well, watching that halves combination of Gamble and Crossland. This is a very one-dimensional attack. It's a Knights team that fights hard, tries not to make mistakes, and then says, KP, get us a few tries. And if you've only got one player that you've got to watch out for, it's not as hard to contain, even if that player is an all-world talent. I think the 10-point line sounds fair.
I look at this and I actually do like the Tigers at the plus. The issue is, as Harry says, who's going to get sent off or sin bin this week? Until they fix
instead of first try scorer, we should be able to bet first sin bin for the Tigers.
Honestly, there'd be some value in that market, and you would have cashed more times than not this year if it was a yes or no, that's for sure. Look, it's a bit of a gross game of footy to close the round. I can see it being a relatively poor game by both sides. I'm not convinced that the Knights can replicate what they did last round against Penrith here. If they do, they'll win, and they'll win well. Just because they will be able to, the times when they were camped on Penrith's line and attacking, they will be able to break through the Tigers line, I believe. I go back to their game in Tamworth earlier this year. It was a 20-14 scoreline. I can see something similar this time around as well. Both sides did have some positive qualities about their performances last round, right? The Knights they were great defensively against the Panthers, and the Tigers more so offensively, scoring 18 points down to 12 men there. But in all reality, this is a hard game to get up for as a fan and be excited. Both sides are averaging 18 points per game in terms of scoring this year. The Tigers, though, have conceded 40 or more points in 5 of their last 6 games. So that's horrible. That's bad. That's really bad. So for that reason, I'm probably more interested in looking at Knights try scorers for this one. You touched on him being the main man. Well, he has 6 tries in his past 7 against the Tigers. They're clearly conceding points. As I said, 40 in 5 of their last 6. So I don't like anything in the markets. You can't convince me for anything here. But if I could get Kalen Ponga at like $2.40 for an anytime try somewhere, and I'd need to look at the wiki odds comparison tool for try scorers to know for certain. But given he's got 6 in his last 7, Winnie, Kalen Ponga anytime try scorer would be my tip on this one if I could get the odds right. But don't like anyone in terms of a line or head-to-head play there.
All right, by the way, when I said betting on first sin bin, that would be too easy to pick the team that had the first sin bin. I was saying make it a bit more fun. You have to pick which Tigers player will it be this week to go into the sin bin.
I wonder if betting agencies would be allowed to offer that.
Unfortunately, they're not because of the optics that like a player could deliberately put himself in the bin. So the bookies, aren't allowed to. It would be pretty funny, and it would actually be good fun. I thought I could actually demonstrate the wiki tool on the fly and try and check out what odds
for KP
is. I'll get back to you. Maybe just, do you want to summarize Clarkey's Collect for people?
100%. Been going for about an hour now, guys, so we will get out of your hair in a moment. But before we do, let us recap all of our best bets that we have this round. So for myself, just quickly, I'm going Storm -9.5, Panthers -9.5, and Manly +6.5. That multi pays $2.60 on TopSport. Had a lot of luck with the 3-leg multis, trying to pick 3 relatively conservative results. So combining that again this round and hopefully increasing Clarkey's Collect up to, that would get us to +17 units, which would be awesome. Winnie, how'd you go for odds on KP try?
My phone's playing on me, so I won't try and multitask. I can put it in the comments. But that's the key there is you go to the game and you can go filter by first try score or any time try scorer and check what the best odds available are for KP. Though my point is that when all eyes are on him, it's that much harder for him to score. but he's that good that I won't write him off either. 6 best bets for me. They're on the screen too. Storm -7.5, second half line, $1.83, sports bet, Ladbrokes Neds. Sharks +3.5, first half line, $1.88, Ladbrokes Neds. Panthers, team total over 30.5, $1.80, 365. Manly -3.5, $1.87 on 365. Cowboys -6.5, which is also $1.87 on 365. And also on 365 as well, I'm taking, it just says under 48.5. That is, of course, Dragons Bulldogs at $1.91.
Great stuff as always, mate. Sorry, I'm in daydream land. Absolutely appreciate everyone's time here on the TryPod podcast with our live preview of round 23. That is all of our best bets. And of course, we will be with you Sunday within 15 minutes to recap it all as well. So from myself, thank you very much for spending your Tuesday afternoon/evening with us. And we look forward to welcoming you back on Sunday. Over to you, Winnie, for the final word.
Thanks, mate. Good show. Hopefully I can bounce back. Hopefully you can just keep it rolling. Enjoy the Olympics this week, guys. Keep cheering that Aussie gold. Keep cheering for some Chinese medals that could get us home. Hopefully in 5 days' time, I can be celebrating that $13 medal multi-win. Stay tuned in the TryPod group, not only for the mixed matchup, which I'll get created and posted tomorrow, but any other Olympics bets that I like along the way. I haven't had a good look at what's on tonight, but I know the Boomers are in a quarterfinal in a couple of hours, so I can't wait to watch that. So go to the Aussies, enjoy, guys, and enjoy the footy. Let us know what you thought of all my best bets and Clarkies and anything else that you really love for the week. Happy to chop it up with you, and we'll be back Sunday to break it all down. Have a great week. Lego.